Welcome to Detroit. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass. You can drown them. And that's what we gotta be. That's who we have to be. Because that's our domain. That is our domain. Because we'll tread water as long as it takes to fucking bury you.
Takes the snap, turns, gives to Montgomery, right side, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions! Yes.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. So, folks, obviously we know that the Lions are going to play their second preseason game tonight. We know they're going to be playing against the Falcons. So what this episode is going to serve as is kind of like a preamble, kind of like a pre-server episode, if you will, of who we as Lions fans should really be paying attention to in this game. Which players have really a big chance to have some sort of, opportunity to step forward and really make a difference. Hopefully in a good way. So, not going to take too long with this episode. I'd be willing to bet that most people probably have the same number of names, probably have the same number of people that are on their lists, but we're going to have some fun with it. And then obviously, once we get to the game, we'll do the live stream, we'll have fun with that, and then, the whole 9 yards. But let's talk about the players that I think are the most important to watch tonight for the Lions. I have 10 players. And these are the players that we know for a fact are going to play. If we include the players that we think might play, well, then it would probably go up to 10. It would probably go up to 12. But here are the 10 players that obviously we need to pay attention to that are definitely playing. That's Isaac Tesla, Ahmed Hazanin, Manu, Keith Cooper, Zach Cunningham, Stroud, or, Stewart, Rock Ya-Sin, Avonte Maddox, and obviously Hendon Hooker and Kyle Allen. Those are the 10 players that we know for a fact are playing tonight that we absolutely need to pay attention to. Now, if the players that have the potential to play actually do suit up and play, like I said, it would go up to 12 because now we'd be including, obviously, Tyleik Williams and Tate Ratledge. But again, we don't know if they're playing just yet. No word has been officially put out if they're going to actually suit up and play tonight. But if they do, obviously everybody's going to be paying attention to what they do because those guys are going to be starters. We definitely need to see what they do in this type of a game. But until that, it's mere speculation. But for the ones that we know are definitely going to play, it's not speculation. So, let's take a look at the 10 names that I put out there and look at the reasons why we need to watch. Look at what we need to watch for, things of that nature. Let's start with the first name, Tesla. When it comes to Tesla, I'm telling you this right now. This is a guy that when we drafted him, a lot of Lions fans, absolutely did not like the pick. I was probably one of the few that actually looked at the pick and I'm like, you know what? I like this pick. I like where the potential is. I like what we can possibly get out of this. But I'm telling you this right now, I don't think anybody expected that he was going to be a potential force and a wrecking ball as early as he's already showing that he can be. Again, this is a guy that, going back to the Hall of Fame game, was one of the few players that was actually able to put out some good tape, was actually able to do very well within that game. And when we're taking a look at this game in particular with, the Falcons tonight, the main thing for him is, okay, can you add further to the impressive performance that you were able to put out, last week against, the Chargers? Can you actually stack a second good game? Can you continue to build upon what you've already started, not only in practice, but also with the game that you played? And again, it already looks like he's moving in that direction because he's already starting to take starting reps in practice. I mean, he's obviously not, 100% repping with the ones, but the fact that they're throwing him in there, they're getting him a couple of reps, that's a very, very good sign for him. And you have to think about this as well. We don't know what the extent of Tim Patrick's injury is as to why he had to leave practice early a couple of days ago. But think about this. If that injury is a lingering one or one that he's not able to, fully deal with or whatever the case is, it takes a little bit longer to heal, having him prove that he can step in and, he can continue to build upon what he's been doing, that right there means that, hey, you know what? If Patrick can't go, everything's going to be fine with Tesla. And the other thing you have to consider with Tesla in this whole situation is that Patrick, by his own admission, stated that he's not practicing up to the standards that he has when it comes to training camp, and that he would like to make a better ability to see what he's able to do out there on the field. So with, Tim Patrick obviously dealing with the injury that he's dealing with, which, again, it doesn't look like it's serious, but we don't know how long it's going to be for, what type of injury it is. The ability for Tesla to go back out there and, for Tesla to go out there, continue to make good catches, run good crisp routes, be an effective blocker in the run game, that I think is going to be a big thing for him tonight, and I think that we as Lions fans need to pay attention to that. The next player we're going to talk about, obviously, Ahmed Hazanin. Hazanin was, again, one of those few players from the Hall of Fame game that actually had a really good game. And if I recall correctly, according to PFF, he was the best defensive player analytically that we had. So it's like, okay, you had a really good game as far as the analytics were concerned, as far as the film was concerned. You really made a couple of good plays out there, and you showed that fire, you showed that passion that makes, obviously the Lions absolutely love him, part of the reason why they drafted him, but also the fans root for him and want to see him succeed. But the real thing I think for tonight is, okay, can you, actually implement that pass rush out on the field? Can you actually put that out on tape? Can you get your first sack? Can you be a disruptive force in the backfield, whether it's with runners, whether it's with quarterbacks? So this is a big opportunity for him to, again, stack another good game, but again, to also expand and build upon what he did within that game by, showing other things that he can do. So I think that Hazanin, is going to be in for a big opportunity, a big chance tonight to really expand upon that. The next player we're going to talk about is Giovanni Manu. And Manu is, how do I put this? He's a player who has come under a lot of scrutiny lately because of opposite of Tesla and, Hazanin is that he's not showing that progress. That progress has been very inconsistent. It's been slow. And he's not making the gains that a player of his physical prowess and profile you would like to see. Because it's like, listen, this guy's a damn mountain. He's a physical mountain of a person. So it's like, if he could actually show the progress in terms of the integral stuff, in terms of the intangibles and everything else, the Lions would have a really, really damn good player that they could continue to develop who might have a shot one day of, maybe taking over for Taylor Decker when he's done playing. But at the current moment, it's like, you hear the reports out of practice that he's inconsistent. The progress has not been there as far as all the stuff that the Lions are expecting out of him. So it's like, okay, that is something that you want to start seeing change. And the best way to do that is to go out on the field, to show what you can do when you're actually in the game situations. But it also means that you're doing it in practice as well. And like, Dan Campbell said when he was talking about Manu the other week, he was like, listen, I thought that the game, he had a really good game. It was a solid game, and that the practice before that, he did really solid as well. But it's like, listen, you have to continue to stack those games. You have to continue to stack those days. You have to continue to stack those reps and continue to do good. So I think, him having another solid game with the Falcons like he had with the Chargers, and then continuing to stack upon that with another week of practice, and then you move into the third preseason game and then the fourth preseason game, I think that would really be something that would work well for him. But we have to wait and see what he does tonight. The next guy that we're going to talk about is Keith Cooper. Keith Cooper is an interesting one that I haven't really talked a whole lot about. If I recall correctly, I don't think I've talked about him at all. But Keith Cooper has been having a really great camp, and he has caught the attention of both the Lions coaches and also the media, but also the fellow teammates that he plays alongside on that defensive line. When it comes to the undrafted free agents currently, Keith Cooper is probably the one UDFA that, again, if I recall correctly, he's a UDFA, if I remember reading correctly. But if that's the case, he is the one UDFA that I think has the best chance to make it onto the roster for the Detroit Lions. And that is because of the fact that, When you take a look at what's been happening in training camp, there's reports that he's really making an impact in terms of the middle of that defensive line. He's really doing a good job. He's stepping up. He's making the best of his opportunities. And it's like, hey, we already know that Brad Holmes has stated that one of the things that, has really changed comparatively to where it was a couple of years ago is how hard it is for undrafted free agents to make it onto this roster. And that speaks to how much talent that this roster has accumulated, both in terms of the starting level, but also in terms of the depth, in terms of the backups. But again, Cooper has been really showing out in camp, according to the reports that I've been reading, and he should have a good opportunity to continue to show that ability tonight and execute at a high level in the game. So he's definitely a guy that I'm going to be paying attention to as well, and I think everybody else should also pay attention to him. The next guy that we're going to talk about is, if I recall correctly, it's Zach Cunningham. Cunningham is one of the linebackers that's kind of in that second group rotation, but what makes him kind of a little bit different than most of these other guys is that he doesn't have, the problem of not having experience. This is a guy that has been around for quite a while. He has an immense amount of starting experience. I think he started 86 games in the NFL. So the fact that he's out there running with the number twos, again, like I just said, with Keith Cooper, it speaks to the amount of talent that the Lions have in their number one unit, but also in the fact that, hey, for a guy that has started as many games that he has, that he's running in our number two unit, that should tell you really how well our linebacking core is. But the ability of what we're trying to watch tonight with this game is, okay, you know what? Chances are we already know you're going to probably make the roster. You have a lot of talent. You have a lot of, experience. That's going to speak volumes for you being there as a backup player for our linebackers, especially while Rodrigo is still on the mend. And obviously linebackers are a very physical group, so you want to make sure you have good depth there. So what you want to see here is you want to continue to see him have good games. You want to continue to see him stack those reps and obviously practice and in the game, because you want to be able to say, okay, you know what? We want to make sure we have solid depth behind our guys of Jack Campbell, Derek Barnes, Alex Anzalone. And so if he can continue to go out there and really put on, what we know he can do based upon, what he's done in the past with other teams, I believe that, those reasons are things that we should pay attention to because, hey, you know what? It'll provide good tape and, show that he's continually making progress, within this Lions defense. The other linebacker we need to talk about is Stewart. Now, Stewart is another linebacker that's also fighting for a backup role, but his importance to this conversation is not necessarily in the fact of, him really being a linebacker for us. Could he be? Absolutely. That's what his primary position is. But where the importance is going to be located tonight is in his ability to return kicks, because he stated that he wanted to return kicks for the Lions. Obviously, the Lions think that there's something there. But if we go back to what happened in the Hall of Fame game, the very first impression that we got of him was not good at all. It was actually very bad, because very first kickoff, he fumbles the ball, gives the ball to the Chargers. So that was not a good first impression. But he is most certainly going to get more chances in this game and obviously other games going forward. So he'll have an opportunity to make up for that. And he obviously needs to make up for that by, not only doing good as a linebacker when he's out there on the field, but making sure that he's smart with the kickoff returns, making sure that he actually controls the ball when he's getting tackled, he doesn't muff any kicks, make sure that, hey, if there's an opportunity to really make a big play, you make a big play, because having other options for a returner is good for us, because if for whatever reason something should happen to Khalif Raymond, because he's our primary returner, we would like to have other options before we have to look at guys like, Jamo and Gibbs. And again, it's not to say that Stewart had a bad game overall against the Chargers. He was the only guy that was able to get a sack against, the Chargers on Trey Lance. So it's like, okay, yeah, that's good. And again, the effort that he put in on that play, the fact that, he got, hit in the legs and then got flipped and then, got up and was able to still make the sack, that's great. I love that. But you also want to make sure that, hey, if this guy is going to be somebody that's going to return kicks for us, we also need to see something from that perspective as well on a good front. The next two guys we're going to talk about are kind of in the same boat, but obviously one a little bit more different than the other. And those guys are obviously Rock Ya-Sin and Avonte Maddox. Rock Ya-Sin is just like Cunningham, an established veteran, has been in the NFL for a while, a guy that knows his job, knows his role rather well. But his importance in this game is his ability to be able to flex both as a cornerback and as a safety. Same thing with Maddox. But for a lot of Lions fans, it's obviously they want to see him play again because of the absolute just physicality, toughness that he showed in the game against the Chargers. Because, hey, when you watch that game, his play instantaneously, it just jumped right off the damn screen. And when you consider that, and then the fact that the Lions are trying to flex him around, whether it's a cornerback or safety, that's also important considering the fact that the Lions just lost 2 defensive backs in Rakestraw and Jackson for the entire season already. So I expect that the Lions are going to probably bump him into a couple of different spots, whether it's at, the outside, whether it's a nickel, whether it's a safety. And the same thing is also true for Avonte Maddox. They're going to want to see, okay, can we put these guys in multiple places? Can we flex them around and, have more options as far as flexibility is concerned? Which then brings us to the last 2 Yahoos, Hendon Hooker and Kyle Allen. I'm going to tell you this right now. Everybody knows exactly why we're going to be watching these 2 tonight. The backup position is without doubt the one position that many Lions fans are the most anxious about, and they're wanting to get a much clearer picture on what the expectation is they can have going forward. Because, I'm going to tell you this right now, most if not all Lions fans were not at all enthused or excited from the performance that those 2 gave last week in the Chargers game for the Hall of Fame game. And, as we also know, neither quarterbacks were excited or happy with their performances as well. However, what's different this game versus last game is that Hendon Hooker is going to get the start, so he's going to be running out there with the 2s rather than Kyle Allen, and then Kyle Allen's going to be on the back half of the game running with the 3s. But when we're talking about these 2 guys, Hendon Hooker and Kyle Allen, there's more pressure to show progress tonight from Hendon Hooker because it's like, listen, everybody's been wanting to say, oh, well, you're not really giving him opportunities to run with better players. You're not giving him an opportunity to really show what he can do when he's got better talent around him. Okay, well, tonight he's going to get that opportunity. Tonight he's going to have the opportunity to play with the number 2s, to play with Tesla, to play, with the higher up talent that we have. He absolutely has to go out there and show that not only can he run the offense, he can be accurate with his throws, he can be timely with his reads. He has to show all of that. He can't turn the ball over. He can't miss throws. Because if those things happen, and then Kyle Allen, who is the established veteran, he goes in with the number 3s and he absolutely lights it up, you're going to have all of a sudden now a really, really hard conversation of, okay, here, is it because, Hendon Hooker has not had a chance to operate with more, qualified talent? Or is it, again, like I've been saying, there's actually a problem going on here, and people really need to start having a serious conversation about what's going on with Hendon Hooker? What can the Lions realistically expect from him going forward? What is his future here, if at all a future here? So, again, both of these quarterbacks are going to be under a microscope tonight because it's going to be like, okay, we need to see how they perform when, number one, the scripts and roles are reversed as far as who they're operating with, but also what the expectations are when they're in those different units. Because if Hendon Hooker continues to not do well with the number 2s and Kyle Allen just absolutely kills it with the number 3s, okay, now you're going to have a really, really interesting conversation to have that I know some Hooker fans are not going to want to have. But again, it's important to understand what each individual that I'm talking about has on their plate as far as expectations and what they're going to be watched for going into tonight's game. But anyway, folks, I just wanted to talk about this really quickly, kind of give you guys an idea of where I'm looking, what I'm expecting for tonight, what I'm going to be looking for, and maybe you guys can look along with me, and maybe there's other people that you guys are really interested in watching. Who knows? But obviously, the live stream will be tonight. We will watch it together. I will obviously do what I normally do. Looking forward to it. But having said that, I'm going to end this episode and say thank you all for watching yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage you all to watch the next episode or watch the episode I released earlier today. If you enjoyed the content, I also hope to gain your subscription. But if you just subscribed and you not had a chance to do so just yet, or you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so, I also want to highly encourage y'all, please make sure you hit that bell notification icon so you guys never miss any more content that I push out. Hope everyone is having a great day. Got something in their life that makes them happy, makes them smile. And until tonight's live stream, I just want to say God bless. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.